All right, so my name is York. I'm with Alpha. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey from AGI to ASI, superintelligence. So the history of AGI really goes back to univariate regression. Back in the 1880s, you have people like Gauss, you have people like Francis Galton. These kinds of people, they did the first primary work in modeling data. Then you get things like multivariate regression. This is, once again, it's a linear relationship between variables, but it is multivariate, so you can model multiple different things at once. And then you get things, this also goes back towards the 1800s and stuff, but you get things like covariance or co-skewness, co-kurtosis. These are other higher order moments, other ways of measuring more different relationships between your data. And you get even beyond that, things like copulas. This gets us up into about the 1990s is when this really became research. This is when you start to have nonlinear relationships between different variables in your data. And now what we're seeing is we're seeing neural dependence. We're seeing highly nonlinear relationships between large numbers of different variables. So earlier we had the sensor fusion from these self-driving cars. That's exactly the kinds of things we're talking about. Or you have figure robots where you have a bunch of different sensors and you're trying to integrate all of the information to understand the highly nonlinear relationships between all your different variables. And this is becoming increasingly important. A lot of work, obviously, from the 2010s with things like transformers. But this is really highlights that we're seeing increasingly nonlinear dependence across space, and that advancements in technology and algorithms are likely to increase this. So that's the key trend number one to keep your eye on. The next one is characterized by ARIMA, autoregressive moving average. This is basically your rolling average. Everyone's seen one of these. It's just taking a simple linear relationship between the previous values in order to predict something in the future. Then you get ARCH, which stands for autoregressive conditional heteroscedasticity. Essentially what it's saying is maybe if some of the variables that you have are changing, the variance of those variables is changing, this helps you account for that. This is from the 70s. Then around the 2000s, and of course we're skipping an enormous amount of history here, but then you get things like recurrent neural networks and LSTMs. These are really in the 2000s and in the 90s. These start to measure increasingly, once again, nonlinear relationships across time. So you start to get some ability to understand, you have hidden states that can keep track of things that you've seen in the past. And that, once again, gets us up to transformers, which is really the state of the art in any kind of sequence modeling, obviously. It's what kicked off a lot of things. For example, here's a video of the StarCraft AI from DeepMind called AlphaStar. This is from 2016. And you can have these extremely highly nonlinear relationships, deep temporal relationships between previous events that were hundreds of hours ago. You can keep track of them and understand time in a nonlinear way. So what we're seeing is increasingly nonlinear dependence across time. And so if you kind of ask yourself this question, we have long context and we have high multimodal. We have the increasing number of features widthwise, nonlinear relationships between them, and the same thing across time. So what is the future of this? Well, the most complicated thing that we can imagine is the economy. It is understanding all of the different things that go on in the economy. This is the supply chain of some basic goods, but it's millions and millions, billions of variables, an extremely long period of time. And it's extremely long context. And so being able to handle trillions of data points long, thousands of data points wide, is an extremely difficult problem. So what our company does is we are building a digital twin of the economy. It's taking in all of the different kinds of data that you can imagine to understand what is going on in our world and making sense of it. And the objective, of course, is to take this digital twin and to ask and answer the question, what is the most profitable thing that I can do at this very moment to take advantage of my understanding of the world and my predictions of it? So the future, in our opinion, that we're going to see is that all of these AI companies, when Sam Altman and Dario and Demis Hassabis, when they sit down and they finally have AGI in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, they're going to ask the question to the AI, what is the most profitable thing? Make me as much money as possible. And what that AI is going to tell them is to do this. It's going to tell them to make a digital twin of the economy, and then it's going to make as much money as possible. So if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, and obviously we couldn't really scratch too much on the surface of what it is, there's our contact information.